Alrighty, people. So I just got back from the hospital here. You know, we know what kind of society we live in with everybody and their cameras and everything, because I left a little earlier, right? Because I had to pay bills, right? Because remember my dad said pay bills, right? You know, keep the house intact. Let's not lose the house over this. You know, he's not dead yet, right? Anyway, because when he dies, it's definitely going to change around here. So, you know, we were trying to bring down the bills as best as we could and hold this landlord off at bay. Like, no, we can't afford to pay for the porch, and no, we can't afford to be paying, you know, for the bathroom and whatever else that this landlord wants us to pay for, you know, when they want extra money from us, you know. We'll take that money and put it on a bill instead, eh? Stop buying tools and things for this yard, you know. So anyway, hold on, people. Okay, as I was saying, I don't know what I was saying. Obviously, I got distracted from my conversation there. But anyway, I've been feeling like when Andre was taken away, I feel like puking. I'm having heart palpitations. I'm breaking out in a freaking sweat. I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm not paranoid, because I already know how these people operate in terms of that colluded group of government employees. So I run off to the bank and I go pay the bills. And I felt like a fucking criminal. Right? I want to puke, you know, my heart's like this, and because don't forget, they want me to sign over a paycheck to go pay for their convalescent ward. Because what happened was, before I went off to pay bills, somebody called me, because today is payday for all the old people, right? Well, are you sure you can't come in sooner to speak to the doctor instead of Friday? And I said, well, no, I scheduled all my kids in on Friday to come talk to the doctor on Friday with my family. You know, I can't just, it's hard to, you know, catch up with my kids to get everybody to come on one day, right? So let's just keep the appointment for Friday. But I wanted to get to the hospital early so I could get home early, because I'm just exhausted with this thinking, right? And worrying, you know, and having to go against the grain, you know, be the fish that goes up the other stream instead of with the rest of the freaking fish, you know, acting like sheep going to slaughter. I mean, what is the point of a union worker having a pension plan so that the minute that they get sick, as soon as they get to the hospital, you got the social workers and the team figuring out how they're going to start putting their fingers into it and spending it and bankrupting the families at home? Because that's basically what will happen if this progresses for any length of time. And this is while the human being is alive. Okay? I mean, if you die, you die. That's a totally different scenario. But, you know, imagine yourself being a union worker and having your pension and having your family, and you wake up sick one day and you end up in the hospital, and then you're sitting in the hospital and you're thinking about how your family life is falling apart because the bills aren't getting paid and all this other stuff, because all of a sudden half your money, if not more than half your money, is going into the healthcare system to keep your ass alive. Well, they're trying to convince you that they want to send you home. So anyway, I pay the bills, feel like shit, feel like puking, having mass freaking panic attacks, tell myself calm down, go to the hospital. I get there at 1:30, you know, and I know they got their cameras, you know, it's just the way it is. That's the kind of society we live in. As I turn the corner, I see this guy run into my dad's room, right? So by the time I get up into my dad's room, there's this guy standing there with my dad, and guess who it happens to be? It just happens to be a doctor. Isn't that coincidental, don't you think? Oh, hi! Oh, you're Judy. Yeah, who are you? Oh, I'm the doctor. You just spoke to me yesterday. Oh, okay. Well, John can go home. Oh, are you serious? John can come home? Sure. He doesn't have an infection no more. Yada yada yada. And I said, well, okay, so all he needs is an aspirin because he's got little heart fluctuation, which is normal for his age, so they give him a blood thinner to try and correct that problem or maintain it or whatever they do. And then he says, well, you know, Mr. Duncan, can you stand up for me and walk? Well, obviously, the doctor knew that he couldn't do that. But, you know, it's all charade and show right now. It's, what do they call it, a pony and dog show? You know? Enemy number 1 is coming down the hall. Quick, go see Mr. Duncan so that you can hoodwink the bitch. Hoodwinker. So I'm like, so he gets up and of course he's, you know, he's like this, right? Because one, normally he's stiff and it takes a minute to move around. That's kind of standard, but considering that he's been laying around for a while, I forgot what the doctor called it. It's like some sort of like, you know, you get floored and it takes a little longer to recuperate from that, right? So it was very clear very quickly that my dad's strength is very limited. And then he was going on, the doctor was going on to say, well, you know, if we send him home and you got John and you're walking with John and John falls and you fall with John and you break my hip, I break my hip, how is John going to feel? Or if John falls and breaks his hip, how is the doctor going to feel for allowing him to come home under the circumstances? So now we're in a corner. First, we're being told that he can come home because the infection is gone, although he has a little bit of blood in his urine, which could be related to his prostate. So he was going to have him come in as an outpatient to follow up on that. But other than that, John can come home. But now that John can't really walk or hold his weight, it's better if he goes into the convalescent ward. And I'm like, well, yeah, you know, and John, like, you know, he has a point, and, you know, I mean, yes, there would be 2 of us in the house, and, you know, but, you know, what, I don't know, like, I mean, obviously common sense kind of leans towards the doctor in terms of not stressing everybody out, right? You know, not stressing the family out, not stressing out the doctor, and, you know, his concern about releasing a patient too soon, and, you know, or maybe even stressing my dad out with having to wait for the family to come into his room to walk him to the bathroom. You know, he needs a little more time. Okay, so, fine. I told the doctor, I said, you can tell... I'm talking. Be quiet, please. I told the doctor, you can tell... No, you just had a yogurt. Do not interrupt me. I'm busy. Wait.
Okay, I'll wait a bit.
Thank you. I told the doctor that he could tell the social worker to send us a bill. Because the hospital can make provisions much easier than we can as a family. He goes, provisions? What do you mean by provisions? I said, well, this is a pretty big system. You know, financially, you can make provisions for that bill. Whereas if we got to start paying for care, because I'm telling you people, the only reason that social worker wanted to talk to me was to find out how much his pension plan was and to convince me to put my John Henry down. And if that would have happened, I wouldn't have the bills paid today. Period. Period. I'm not getting any rent from my middle daughter because she has to quit her job at McDonald's because McDonald's just gave her full benefit package because she kind of earned that. But they're cutting back on her hours where she doesn't qualify for that anymore. For whatever reason. And she doesn't have time to play games. So she's just quitting. And let's not forget what their bathroom situation is like with the homeless population flooding it day after day, night after night, you know, doing their, you know, turning their tricks in there and shooting up and doing God's smearing blood and smearing poo. This is what my daughter's working environment is like, as McDonald's just gave them her, you know, full benefit package, but now the management is not giving her full hours because everybody in the fucking company is getting their hours cut. So she's just going to go look for another job. But bottom line is, I'm not getting rent. I had my oldest daughter go back down into the basement, you know, to get off the streets and get on her methadone and straighten out her life. And at first, her and my middle daughter were going to move out, but because my middle daughter's been having such a hard time with, you know, permanent employment, even though she's been working with the company for over a year and a half, finally got her benefit package, couldn't even make enough money to move out with her sister. But I didn't get no rent from my oldest daughter yet. So we put the application in with welfare, but that hasn't come through. So, like, there's no money. I get $1,000 on my welfare check. Well, I just went through another audit. I had an audit in 2010, a real big one. And then they just did a little mini audit around family and maintenance enforcement program. Went back to 2012 and are saying something I owe them like $500 for unclaimed child support in that 2-year period. So that's even less, right? Because I have to pay that back because it's dollar for dollar. So I paid the bill today and I felt like a fucking criminal. I felt like puking. I feel like crying. I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. I feel like the government's going to come after my ass. Again. Again. And again. And a fucking again. For trying to be responsible. And standing up. My dad said fight, stand up, say no. Well, obviously, it makes a little sense to try and give him a little more time to gain a little bit more strength. You know, but, you know, they want to keep him. You know, well, we'll see. We'll see. Once we agreed to let him go, then the doctor kind of turned his tune around and said, well, we'll see how long it takes. We'll see. Well, he's never going to run a marathon like those other old men in that fucking room, because those other old men in that room don't have the same physiological problems as my dad, like with the bad legs and the bad eyesight. Okay? Although I do agree that my dad needs to get a little bit more stronger, just to make it a little more easier on all of us at home. Right? And not so stressful in terms of struggling with it. How long that's going to take, I don't know. But when you look at it from the financial point of view, we're being criminalized already, again, as a poor family. Because I just told that doctor, you tell that social worker to bill us. I made some enemies today because the management forced the nurse to call me today to get my dad out of that freaking bed. By trying to get me to come in sooner to see the doctor. And the minute they seen me coming with my grandson and the doctor was there because I happened to come a little early, the doctor ran off and was standing by Uncle John right before I got there because I seen him turn the corner as I came around the corner. So he was cued. He wasn't just happened to be there. No, they need the bed to get the people out of the halls because they're all lined in the halls downstairs. One person after another, after another, after another. And they need the ones with the pension plan to pay for the extra services that they get while they get better in the hospital. To try to separate it. Well, he's in the hospital. He doesn't need to be in the hospital because he doesn't have an infection. So we don't want him here in this room with these people because we don't want to introduce a new infection to him. So we're going to move him to a convalescent ward, so somehow that makes it okay to pay for that, being that he supposedly can afford it. But at what cost? By bankrupting this house, because we don't have the provisions to compensate for those losses. But the healthcare system has the provisions. So I don't know where this is going to lead people. I really don't. I just know that the BC Union in British Columbia, Canada, is in big fucking trouble. Honest to God, these people that are working, planning on having a retirement, planning on building their little life around their pensions, the minute they get sick will be the minute they will go bankrupt. Because this is American style privatized healthcare where you will get billed for healthcare. And let's see the bills come. Because we have the option to either pay the bill in a manner that we can afford. Not, here, let me cut you a check for $950 fucking dollars. It ain't gonna happen like that. Because if we do it that way, this house will go bankrupt immediately. $500 a month payment, or, depending on how my dad is feeling and what he wants, we may take it to court and we may dispute it. Because if somebody doesn't stand up to this nonsense, all these people with their pension plans, thinking that they're going to be able to live with their families and have a life, are going to find out that once the minute they get sick, and the social workers find out that there's a pension plan that they can put their fucking fingers in, there won't be no pension plan. You are not working for a pension plan for you and your family. You are working for a pension plan to pay for your future health care costs. And this is the moral of this story. The only problem is people in Canada and everywhere else where it's kind of like, we've been conditioned not to rock the boat. We just go along with it. And they just add on more user fees, like an ambulance fee. We never paid for ambulance fees until the BC Liberal government came in and ripped up. The union busted. They busted up the unions in the kitchens in the hospitals. The janitors and all those people in the parliament buildings lost their benefits. And something to do with the schools and the janitorial system as well. Everybody lost their pensions and their benefits. Well, maybe not so much their benefits, but definitely their fucking pensions. And then they came in and they started adding in toll bridge fees, ambulance fees, rehabilitation fees. You got to pay for everything, people. So that little pension plan that you're saving for to live with your family when you're old, the minute you get sick and you end up in the hospital, you might as well take it and just sign it over to your government. Because that's the direction that we're going in. And that's where we're at. And then there's people like me that go on the advice of my dad after we discussed it. And I pay the bills. And now I'm going to get criminalized for being responsible. Because we don't have the provisions to supplement. I'd like to call it the beast, right? Because it's like you're working with the fucking devil here. You can't work with them. It's impossible. It's all about fucking money. It's like that, family enforcement maintenance. We got to get down to the last dollar. Let's look for every, $320, $2, $4, $14 there. Like, I got to go back into my files and try and cross-reference to make sure that this woman didn't make any mistakes. Because that's what they do. They come 2 or 3 years later and they hoodwink you so that, when you want to cross-reference, you might not have the paperwork to follow up on what they say that you owe them. Because as far as I'm concerned, when I was getting child support, I was claiming it. So I don't know why I owe like $500. Like, I don't. I never got a welfare check in October of 2013. They cut me off in fucking November in 2013 because of child support. Right? I didn't go back on welfare until finally freaking February because the house was going bankrupt. Do you know how many times the BC Liberal government has tried to bankrupt my fucking house? Since 2003? What, by hook or by crook? This is just another form with this, well, he's got to pay $32 a day plus. Well, you give him the health care and you bill us. That's what they do in the States. They bill people. Well, since we're under an American plan here, they can bill us. And then we'll just see what happens. So in the meantime, people, I don't feel very good. I really don't.